The other thing, you know,
and I'm chatty too.
Well, but this is really an interesting part in our business. You know, people always love to ask the question, so what's he really like, or what's she really like?
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to apply a little spin, because you can't really answer the question.
We have to be diplomatic.
Diplomatic is another way of putting it.
Yes.
But the best question I ever get is, what's Gayle really like? Because it's a very easy question to answer. She's kind and warm, approachable, down to earth, and it's very easy. But I'm wondering, since our business, there's so many people with personas that they put out.
Yeah.
You've sort of doubled down and trusted on your own authenticity. Doesn't bother you to talk about your Spanx?
No, doesn't bother me to talk about my Spanx. Doesn't bother me to talk about my weight. People say, you know, on Instagram, because I'm a member of Weight Watchers, and my third time, by the way. And so I do a thing on Instagram where I do my weight, and they said, God, I can't believe that you talk about your weight or you talk about your age. Number one, people have eyes they can see, so it's not like I'm fudging anything. And I just think when you get to a certain point and you feel comfortable in your own skin, it's okay to talk about those things. When I was growing up, there was an actress named Jane Kennedy, who was like, do you remember Jane Kennedy?
Was it Leon Isaac Kennedy?
Yes.
Yes, I do remember.
Good, Mr. Axelrod.
Penitentiary.
Yes, yes. Jane Kennedy was the Halle Berry of today in terms of beautiful black woman. She had light skin and what we call good hair and was just very pretty. And I thought, God, I want to be like Jane Kennedy. Then you get to the point where you say, you know what, I'll never be Jane Kennedy. So there's always going to be somebody who's smarter, richer, prettier, thinner, and you have to get to the point that you feel okay about yourself. And I got to that point in my life. So I can admire anybody that you say, God, I love your shoes, I love your dress, I think you're so pretty. And when you feel okay about yourself, that's very easy to do. So that's why, you know, I've always been a chatty kid. I remember being in 3rd or 4th grade, I got a letter home from the teacher that said, Dear Mr. and Mrs. King, Gayle is a very bright student, but she talks a lot in class and tends to be disruptive, and I brought it to her attention and now I'm bringing it to yours. Well, in my house, you get a letter home from the teacher. That was very bad, very, very bad. Had to go in and apologize, blah, 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 blah. So it's interesting that I would, you know, all these years later, make my living talking. I think there's something very cool about that. I do.
The idea of persistence.
Yeah.
As so many of these attributes that students need to succeed aren't sexy, right? Like we're talking about persistence.
Yeah.
You are as big as you've ever been in your career as a bold-faced name.
Yeah, I would say that.
You also spent 18 years as a very highly respected anchor woman. Working hard.
Yeah.
Did you need to succeed at this scale, this grand scale success?
Nope, I actually didn't. And even coming to CBS, I was very happy with the job that I had. I didn't seek this out. You know, as Professor Nutter pointed out, Chris Lick called me and said, we're thinking about, you know, changing things up in CBS. Would you be interested? And when I said, what is it? He said, well, I can't tell you what it is. I said, well, how can I make a decision if you can't tell me what it is? He said, well, we just want to gauge your interest. I said, well, I can't even give you my interest when I don't know exactly what it is. So he said, well, you know, we're thinking about making some anchor changes. Well, who would that be? Well, we can't say. Well, I can't say if I'm going to be interested if you can't tell me who the anchor is going to be. So, you know, we did that little dance for a while, and then, you know, he told me it was Charlie Rose. Now, when you think of Charlie Rose and Gayle King, you go, what? I mean, in fact, all the critics said it's audacious and intriguing, it'll never work. And I knew Charlie, you know, I didn't know him the way I know him now, but I knew him in social circles. He went to Duke, my son went to Duke, so I was on the member of the parents committee. So I had seen him at different things. And Jim, I said, you'll get a kick out of this. I said, does Charlie know that you're talking to me? Which, as you know how this game works, he damn well do. And so, you know, I was very happy doing what I was doing. You know, I was a big fish in a little pond in Hartford, Connecticut, where I anchored the news and had left there and gone to the magazine and was doing well there and had a show on Oprah's Network OWN, and had a radio show. So I felt like I was doing all right. I didn't claim this because I was very happy with my life. But the opportunity presented itself, and I said, oh, okay, let me try that. I think that you can't, I was never a person that thought I want to be this big. I never thought that. As a matter of fact, my favorite son, Will, who's now 29, says, I would never want you to have Auntie O's success because it's like being in a parade with her all the time. I like it that you're slightly rich and slightly famous. So I was very fine in that category.
People don't get that, do they?
No.
Like, I'm sure when you must have so many stories about, you can't, well, Oprah doesn't walk through the airport anymore, but the situations you're in, it's incessant, it never stops, everybody wants a piece of you, and it can be a little much.
But you know what I say about that? Don't cry for me, Argentina. It's not like people are saying, God, you suck. They're saying, I watch you all the time, I really like what you do, you know, could I take a picture, could you say hello? So I always get a little, not irritated, but I just think, oh brother, when I see these celebrities that are either hiding their faces or being rude to people, because these are the people that put you where you are. And most of the time, you're only going to see that person one time. You're going to see that person one time. It's the first and last time you're going to see them. I think it's a small price to pay.
I was once interviewing Sophia Loren.
She's pretty.
Oh my God, she gave me a little kiss on I didn't wash my face for a week. And I remember, I said, do you go out to dinner in New York? And she said, yeah. I said, do you get mobbed? She goes, I always try to remember. If I take 30 seconds out of my day, it gives them a memory for a lifetime. Yeah. That's Sophia Loren.
Yeah.
If you're not going to get any bigger than that. And then you'll find somebody who doesn't have half the stature and, they're worried about.
It is different, though, because people are a lot more aggressive. The paparazzi is different, so it is a different day. And I never think you have to put up with rude people, but sometimes people are extremely rude. And I think that there's a line that people shouldn't cross. So, and now we live in an age where everybody has a cell phone and everybody can record you, and people are sometimes trying to provoke you to get you to say something nasty. So it can be dicey sometimes.
So
but most times people are great. Most times people are great.
What has changed in your life since this, what would you call it, the last 4 or 5 years of really blow up?
Well, knock on wood, I'm happy to say more people are watching CBS this morning. I thank you, Professor Nutter. I need to travel with Professor Nutter. Lord have mercy. The way you laid down, and everything you said, that's exactly what happens back then. Going, yes, we did say that. Yes, that happened. Yes. And I'm so appreciative that people are watching and liking what we're doing. CBS hasn't been #1 since Captain Kangaroo. I don't know if you guys remember that. And Mr. Green Jeans.
It's true.
So you know that, Jim. It hasn't been #1 since Captain Kangaroo. So, our numbers are going up and the others are going down, and you can always tell by the crew. My thing is, I love the crew because the crew, I believe, can make you or break you. And when the crew guy says to me, Gayle, I used to not like to tell people that I worked at CBS this morning. Now I tell everybody. That, to me, is one of the biggest compliments you can get.
It's an amazing thing. So I've been at CBS 21 years, and 16 of them, the morning news was this outpost. You didn't want to be involved in it. You didn't want to be assigned a story to it. You did anything you could to get out of it. And now people are elbowing themselves out of their way to get to be part of this.
It's true.
What do you think at the end of the day? Professor Nutter talked about the chemistry. What's going on there? Why this sudden resurgence?
Well, I think that, when we say the news is back in the morning, that just isn't an empty thing. Especially now, what's going on with the Trump administration, and people are very fascinated by how you cover that. How do you cover it? That whole thing about fake news, there's nothing about CBS News that's fake. I think that we are a very authentic news organization. We check, triple check, double check, and I think that is resonating with people. I'm not knocking anybody else, but you won't see Halloween costumes or recipes because that's just not that's just not what we want to do. That said, the beauty of morning television is there's something there for everybody. There's something there for everybody. And I'm just glad more people are starting to watch us.
But there is something also, in addition to not doing the cooking segments, there's an accessibility, there's an energy that Professor Nutter alluded to among the three of you also, that it's a really tricky, delicate operation to bring viewers into the other side of that glass, isn't it?
Well, I think when people watch us, they can really feel a mutual respect and admiration, which we all, the three of us have. I call us a three-legged stool. I think that When one of us is off, you definitely feel the difference, I believe, in the show. And there is no, you can't plan chemistry, is what I'm trying to say. Everybody, it's like if you date a guy, and I have certain things that I like in a guy. I've been divorced for a long time. So on paper you say, I want this, and you can meet that person, and he could have this, but he could be boring as hell. I forgot about the boring part. So there's something, my point is, it can have all of the things that you think you need in a morning show, but you can't plan the chemistry. None of us could. It's just that it's very easy, it really works, and we genuinely like each other.
You have been doing, among other things, a lot. You've been sort of front line a lot of this very interesting last year of political news. You're at conventions, you're at the speech to the joint House of Congress. What do you make, as somebody who isn't grounded in, you didn't spend years in Washington covering this stuff, you're not intimidated by the story itself. So what's your read on what's happening?
Well, I love politics. I love pop culture. But I also really love politics. And is there a better political story than what we're seeing in Washington right now? We have a front row seat. Regardless of how you feel about Donald Trump, he resonated with a big section of this country. And I don't think that we can discount that. I think we have to pay attention. All the polls were wrong, CBS included. And so now we have the Trump administration for the next 4 years, maybe even 8. He has a job to do, we have a job to do. But I think as long as we tell the truth and tell the facts and let the audience decide, let them see. You don't even have to, everybody gets uncomfortable when things get confrontational. And I don't even think you have to do that. You can ask a question 3 or 4 times, the answer isn't changing, but the audience can see what is happening there. And I just think, as long as we stand by the principles that we hold very dear at CBS and stick to the truth, the people will decide.
But in terms of
it's interesting. It's very interesting.
But in terms of a lesson, again, for the broadcast journalism students and everybody else who's here, I worked in Washington for 3 years. I know how intimidating that can be, the Capitol Hill press corps.
Yeah.
And as I've watched you, I've been so taken by, again, you're just bringing the Gayle touch to, even on the floor of the conventions. Does any part of you ever get intimidated? And what's the lesson to these kids about, hey, you're going to tell a story your way, and you're not going to be intimidated by having to fit in according to somebody else's conception?
No, I don't really get intimidated. The last person who intimidated me was Maya Angelou. And she was a friend. But she was the only one who could make me feel like I was 6, even when I was 56. And she just had and I love her. May she rest in peace. I was very, very tight with her. But I don't really get intimidated because, Jim, as you know, they are just people.
Very
honest to God, everybody you see all of us in this room, they are just people. The thing is, more people may know their names than they know any of us. And I think that when you look at it that way, it really is okay. But it's a very difficult story to tell because it's always changing. And just when you think you've heard it all, something else will drop. And I think there's still more to come. I just don't know what that is yet. But I think there is still more to come.
I'm wondering if you could share with us what you think, as we look at sort of how one attains success.
Yeah.
What's the role of failure?
Oh, I think some of your greatest lessons come from failure. And I sometimes think failure is just a way of telling you, maybe you shouldn't do that, or maybe you should try something else. But I don't think, nobody likes to fail, nobody does. But I think that when it does happen, you can take it as a lesson to sit back, analyze, see what your part is in it, see what you can do to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And don't take it as a personal humiliation and, oh, my life is over. Especially because number one, it's going to happen to all of us. It's going to happen to all of us.
Do you have a failure you think about?
Well, yeah, I mean, I had the Gayle King show that was canceled, and I was very proud of that show. This was back when I was in Connecticut, but I never gave up my day job. I still kept doing the news.
How did you absorb that?
I just thought, okay, what is the next thing I'm going to do? What happened? I still thought it was a very good show, by the way, Jim.
Yes.
I was still sort of surprised when it was canceled. 'Cause I thought we were doing okay. And the theme song was, Gayle's got something to talk about, something to talk about. And I came home and Will, who was like 8 or 9 at the time, said, Gayle's got nothing to talk about, nothing to talk about. I go, Will, that is not funny. That is not funny. That is not funny. You know, that was his way, I guess, of trying to make me feel better. But I think it's going to happen to all of us. And I said to Will, I have a favorite daughter, Kirby, and said to all of them that, you know, life is not going to go the way you plan, but as long as you're prepared and you do your best. You know, it's so funny how you're raised one way and you say to your mom or dad, when my children ask me to do something, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to say, because I'm tired, which is what my mom would say sometimes. And if ever my kids ask me to drive them somewhere, I'm never going to say I'm too tired to do that. I can remember saying to my mom, well, God, when you drive, all you have to do is move your feet. Why can't you just take me to the store? I said, if my children ask me to do something, I'm always going to say, sure. And then, God, if the words of Peggy King don't come out of my mouth when they were little. But I said to them, as long as I feel that you've done your best. Will came home from school, 6th, 7th grade, then had a C on his report card. I was in a house that tolerated C's. And I sat him down and I said, are you telling me that a C is the best that you could do? If you can look me in the eye and tell me a C is the best you can do, then I'll say, okay, then I'll accept this. But unless you can tell that to me, Wills, we have some explaining to do, and you are going to be punished. And by that I mean, I wasn't a spanker, but I did take away your electronics. You couldn't go to so-and-so's house. You had to spend more time on your homework. That's what I mean. But if you can tell me that the C is the best you can do, then okay, then we're done here. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't look me in the eye and say that. You know, one of the biggest things, you know, anybody who has children, the thing that you want is everybody wants to please their children, and the children want to please their parents. If you do it right. I say, if kids don't think you care, they don't care what you think. And I always wanted my children to know that I really cared. And so for them, the biggest thing that would bother them is for me to say I was disappointed. I didn't have to hit. I could scream occasionally, but I didn't have to hit. And by the same token, I want them to be proud of me. You know, they've asked me to do Dancing with the Stars 4 times. And both Kirby and Will go, God, Mom, please don't. I go, I'm not thinking about doing Dancing with the Stars. I'm just telling you that they asked me. So I don't want to, my point is, I don't want to do something where they hold their head and go, oh, God. I don't want to do that either.
Now, is it a true story? You were famously it's a very tough balance, this working mother thing.
Yeah.
You cannot be in 2 places at once.
True.
But you were offered a chance to go to Chicago.
Yeah, that's true.
At the end of Oprah's run.
Yeah.
Can you share that story? Because
Yeah.
I find it remarkable. And, you know, there's the walk and there's the talk. And that was the walk.
No, I was divorced, you know, when Kirby and Will were, you know, 4 and 5. And at the time, Oprah was thinking about giving up the Oprah show. Then she said, what we'll do is you'll move to Chicago and we'll start incorporating you in the show, like they did Dr. Phil and Mehmet Oz, and you start incorporating you into the show. Everybody had heard of me who watched the show, because she always said, you know, my best friend Gayle. People asked her, is that best friend Gayle really real, or is that just something you use to tell stories? She goes, no, she really exists. So she said, we'll incorporate you in the show, and then when it comes time for me to step down, and I really am thinking about stepping down, at the time she was seriously considering it, we'll just pass a baton, but you'll have to move to Chicago. Well, you know, they were in middle school, I think, and I was divorced, but it was important to me that they have a relationship with their dad. Mm-hmm. Very important to me. He might not have been a good husband, but he was. But his relationship with his children mattered to me and to them. And so I said, and I really wanted that job, guys. I wanted it so badly. But I wasn't going to leave them. I wasn't going to leave them in Connecticut, and I moved to Chicago, and they commute back and forth. And I didn't want to take them away from their dad. I didn't want to do that, so I turned that down.
And nobody could believe you were actually saying, "No, I'm good. I have to be."
Oh no! I felt that. You know what, Jim? That wasn't even a hard decision. I mean, I really wanted to do it, but it wasn't a hard decision to make for me. It was not a hard decision for me to make. And look how, listen, if I had done that, I wouldn't be sitting here at CBS today.